evening, everyone. Welcome to the Westwood School Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, February 15th, 2018. Welcome, everyone. Just want to remind everyone that, hi Danielle, that we are being recorded for the entire meeting. So without further ado, I think we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So before we jump into the superintendent's report, I think we can't start without turning our thoughts and expressions to those who were lost yesterday in the tragedy in Florida. The kids who were gunned down in this horrible massacre and their families. No one ever expects this to happen in their community, ever. But we are fortunate that we live in a community that takes these risks very seriously, that we have protocol in place for safety, and we're looking at it constantly. So I wanted to say that to all of you, and I was hoping you would join me in a moment of silence as our thoughts go out to the kids who are lost and their families. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with the superintendent's report.
So I'm very excited tonight to recognize some students from Westwood High School and to share with you some information about a fantastic program that we have there that's called Brewing Independence. And I'm going to ask Robin Fabiano, who is our special education department head at the high school, to come on up, and she'll give us an overview of the program and then introduce us to the folks who are involved in this.
Sit here, over there.
You are great where you are.
All right.
And I will advance the slides at your direction.
Thank you. All right, so I'm so excited to be here to talk about Brewing Independence. And I will say that we have a skeleton crew of our baristas here, but we do have some, and I was hoping some more. So maybe a couple more will come in. So Brewing Independence is actually the brainchild of Julie Kilroy, who's one of our special education teachers, and it combines students from 3 programs at the high school, and it focuses on providing opportunities for students to practice vocational and communication skills. And you could picture, I don't know if you want to start with some of the slides. If you could picture a Keurig on a cart type of a program, that's what it is. We provide coffee for our teachers, and teachers can sign up 3 times a week and order coffee. The coffee gets sent via a Google form to the classroom. The classroom students each have different jobs where they will take the form, and if you see it on top, they'll follow the directions, fill the coffee, make the order individualized to whatever the person ordered, and put it on a cart and deliver it to the teacher. We have about probably an average of like 20 orders a day, and we have probably 7 different types of coffee plus tea and hot chocolate that you can get. You can get your kind of sweetener that you want, kind of milk that you want, made to order. And then twice a month, La Luce Bakery from Dedham Square provides us with muffins to also provide to the teachers. And this program has offered opportunities for kids to practice communication skills, vocational skills, budgeting. They stock and practice inventory skills, restocking. We have punch cards, monthly billing, and single pay billing. So there are a lot of different options. And I think the most important part is that the students have gotten out and about in the community and have sort of, I would say, changed the culture in terms of their interaction with teachers that they have not had the opportunity to get into contact with. And not only in the high school, but we also provide the service office to central office. So, you know, getting around in 2 locations. And I would say across all areas, students' skill level and independence and communication skills have really blossomed, and their confidence has blossomed. And we are hoping to continue this, but we're also hoping that the skills that they learn here, barista, come in, perfect timing. Sorry. That's okay. Perfect timing. We're hoping that this translates into vocational opportunities within the community, and all of the students that are on the list are looking for internship, volunteer, and competitive pay opportunities over the summer and throughout the year. So if you're a business owner or know someone who is and wants to creatively get involved with our students, we're happy to work with you to, you know, figure something out for them to contribute to your business. No, thank you. I think Matt's looking for a job. We want to hire him. Yeah, so this is kind of what it looks like out and about. So kids take opportunity, they sort of rotate through the different jobs. You can be a barista, you can be the cart pusher, you can be behind the scenes in the business section doing the restocking and the money. It's fantastic. It's been great.
I am a customer myself.
You have customers around here.
Yes, I can tell you that many a morning I am thrilled when I come in and have my coffee delivered.
Yeah, and we feature Starbucks, so it's the good stuff.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you, Robert. So Ms. Kilroy.
Ms. Kilroy is
Kilroy
right
is
here.
here.
So stand up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great day. To the kids, the students, what great hard work you're doing. And this is really an exceptional program because it provides you with what most kids don't get when they leave high school, and that's experience, right? It's so hard to start out and get a job when you don't have experience, but now you have experience, and how great is that, right? So we thank you for all that you've done for our school, for the contributions you've made, and also to your parents for entrusting your kids to us. And best of luck. This is a fantastic program. This is just, we have other programs in the school, you know, that where we typically focus just on academics, right? These are few and far between in any public district. We do have the SIP program, which focuses on vocational skills, but this is a top-notch program. So thank you for Ms. Kilroy and Robin for this.
Thanks for sharing it.
And thanks for sharing it. And we want to celebrate all of you. Right? And do we have
certificates right here? And we have some students here that will hand this to, and then others will make sure.
Sure.
Okay, great. So I don't actually see you, Robin, and then.
And even though we don't have the camera.
Steve, Mr. Olet, ready with the camera.
All right. So first student that is here that I want to recognize is Sharon Griffin. Nice job. All right, next person that I want to recognize is Matthew Kern. Young woman's father, who's here, is Isabella Gulasarian. The next person that's here is Miss Andrea Reedy.
One, two, three, up.
And there you go.
Look, thank you. Look, see, thank you. That's for you. That's for Andrea. You
I
did
know
it.
it's not as fun as that. Thank you. Yes, and we actually have that last picture. So the next person that I want to recognize is Andrea and Faith. If you guys will make your way down here. So Andrea is a freshman. She actually just finished battling the flu, so we're psyched that she's actually made it.
Ready to take one? Come with me. Good job. Ready?
And so Andrea stays after school, and she and Faith Kimball, and this is Faith's brainchild, knitted, with the help of a knitting machine, 30 hats to be donated to the American Heart Association, benefiting Wait, come back. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a hard time knitting in general, and to knit 30 is pretty impressive. And they're continuing their work, doing more hats for the future. So Andrea, you are being recognized for your community service and volunteerism tonight. So excellent job. That's yours. Excellent job. No, either one. Good job. Awesome.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Ms. Kilroy. It's really a wonderful program. Thank you so much for your work. Next on the superintendent's report, I wanted to mention to the committee that we have gotten some feedback recently from some parents in the district who brought to our attention that the school committee policy manual does not currently include a policy on how we deal with life-threatening allergies. And we were trying to think back and remember in the policy review why that wasn't included, and we couldn't come up with anything. So we think it was merely an oversight.
Barb Delisle was assigned that.
And so what I would like to suggest is that we would be happy to take a stab at drafting a policy and then bring it to the committee for review, and we can get 3 months of review in and hopefully get that in place before the end of the school year. Okay, I'll take care of that. Oh yes, people are free. Of course. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, yes, we're going to see if we can track down Mrs. Hanscom. We'll come back to the Westward update in a minute. So I'll just give you a quick update about our first and middle school principal search. As you know, we are fully in the midst of this search. At this point, we had a very good candidate pool. We received 47 applications. We did a first round of interviews with Allison, Abby, and I. We interviewed 13 candidates. From that process, we identified semifinalists, 5 semifinalists who we advanced to our search committee. Mr. Muller was on the search committee, several administrators, Mrs. Tobin, Mrs. Hanscom, Mr. Bevan, parents, teachers. We interviewed those candidates, and this week we invited 2 finalists to each spend a day in the district, and they did that on Tuesday and Wednesday, meeting with all kinds of constituents. So at this point, I am in the process of reviewing all of the feedback that I got from each of the groups that met with the candidates, and we will be soon starting the very important reference checking process where I will be vetting the candidates in that way. And my hope is that certainly by March 1st, if not a little bit sooner, we'll be able to announce who the next middle school principal will be. So stay tuned. Exciting times here. And at that point, we will turn our attention to the assistant principal. Okay, would you like to talk about Westwood?
I would.
Great.
All right. So I know you received a memo in your packet, and I wanted to just quickly summarize it and answer the questions you might have. So during the Christmas break, we learned that the pass-through funding to DPH is going to count as public funding in the school system. That's new information. And that will make the screening of 2 grade levels of students required going forward. And that was an open question that we had as a community, and we just got that answer. So I'm informing you of that information, and we have a suggested rollout plan in the memo. I'm happy to answer any questions. We've looked at what our capacity is for next year, as well as what is probably a thoughtful way to do it. And we thought we would start with 1 grade level in the high school next year, learn from that process, and add a 2nd grade level, possibly at middle or at the high school, the 2nd year.
Could you just describe the purpose of this, what is
Sure.
the audience?
Sure. So broadly speaking, this is substance abuse screening of students. So it's broader than the opiate issue that we've talked about. It's screening for substance abuse risk, and it's now a required part of our job to screen a full grade level of students, most likely at the high school level, and they're recommending a second full grade level of students either at middle or at high school.
And it's a state promulgation to do this.
This is a mandate from the governor, comes through legislation we've talked about last year, and there was a lack of clarity about the requirement piece, and that was finally definitively answered.
And the objective of it is to find information that might put into action some way of helping people
Yeah,
that we
this is
otherwise wouldn't know about.
a public health initiative coming through the school department.
So what do you do to screen them?
So there's a preferred screener, it's called Enrollment, and it has been research-based and tested. It's a like 6-question screener. We would train our staff this spring. We would plan for a January of next year screening month, and we would probably utilize wellness class times and other appointment slots in the student schedules.
So it
it's
would be
all
verbal?
is a verbal screening one-on-one done by someone with skill in what's called brief interview technique. And it is a real questioning kind of what
Dialogue.
Yeah, dialogue.
So how many people do we, I'm sorry.
Once, if you determine that someone is at risk, what's the next step?
So the key here is that it's a brief interview followed by referral to outside resources and intervention. That's the acronym, so it's a mechanism, a springboard to referral.
And as a part of the developing this, are we going to have like an open suggestion for parents or people, you know?
Yep, so we're in logistics mode right now. I'm meeting the end of this month with the high school team, which is comprised of both guidance, social work, administration, medical, right? We're going to do logistics, timeline planning, and then communication strategy.
And how many other towns have done this earlier?
So we were, if you remember from last year, we were in the middle of the path, right? There were people who were ahead of us who had taken grant funds, and there were people who were right with us, and then a couple people who hadn't really tackled it. I anticipate next year the entire state, every school department will be very aligned with this requirement and will be aligned with them.
And has there been feedback from the early groups? What have they learned?
Yeah.
What came out of it? What the benefits are?
So they do find that they pick up an occasional student they were unaware of, and that's very important.
And you're saying that we have the opportunity to screen 2 at the high school or 1 at the high school, 1 at the middle school?
Yeah.
Are we going to do the middle school?
That, I think, is the conversation to be had here next. I think we should learn from what one grade level of the high school tells us, what parents tell us, what kids tell us, right? I think the reality is screening at the middle school might look different, and our resources and our staffing are different there. So we have to think about how to do that. At a grade level, I thought I heard you ask, it's 250 kids. One-on-one interview.
So how long do you, how long's an interview?
So the people we've talked to who do this say, you know, you can get it down to kind of like 2 minutes of introduction, 5 minutes of talking, and 2 minutes of wrap-up. I think they've been rolling through. But even a 10-minute slot times 250 is significant. This is a significant action.
What are you taking out?
Yes, what do you do?
So Judith Wine, who's our wellness department head, has been very collaborative, and the conversation has already included the wellness teachers to see the most common model is an appointment structure, either through guidance or out of wellness contract. And it doesn't mean we're going to decide to do that, but that's a common.
And the questions that are asked are directed? Are we provided a script? Everything is wrote.
Who asked the guidance counselor? Yeah.
And this is to assess which of our students are at risk for drug usage?
Correct. Yep.
So why don't we just tell the governor all of them are? Now that marijuana is legalized and we keep pumping it into our schools. Maybe that's
So
something.
to your point, it is a public health initiative, and it is very broad net. Yeah.
That's a good question, and I know Senator Adams loves mandates from the state. But the mandate is for 2 and we're only doing 1 next year. Will we be out of compliance with the mandate?
There will be.
Okay.
So I'm going to suggest that you guys think about that for a month.
Yeah.
You know how that sits with you. We have a couple staffing realities at the middle school particularly, where I think a new principal might want to be part of the conversation of how this is going to roll out, and it feels a little artificial to put that into play without that person's input. However, if we want to be technically in compliance, I mean, we received no funds to do this, so I don't think there's a huge financial risk, but certainly we don't want to be out of compliance either. So, but I'd be very open to your feedback on that particular point.
What negative effect is being out of compliance mean? Is it just you got a new middle school principal excuse, or you?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a reasonable thing to say you want the school leadership to be part of the plan.
I think Abby's point about the funding is that it's at some tangible level, there really isn't a sanction, right?
Well, there are no teeth in this.
Yeah, but that may not be the issue.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Owens, what is Enrollment Technologies? See Mr. Olet at the ready, so I can't get the technology back up. Oh, cannot connect. All right, Mr. Olet, you're on. You're up. And I will march boldly on in the meantime.
I'll talk about the website.
Okay.
You work on that and I'll fix it.
All right, I'll see what I can do. Oh,
there we
good,
go.
all right. So Mr. Lett is up for something else. So the next item on the agenda is to talk about our website accessibility improvements.
Yes, so the website, as many of you know, we built it really from the ground up a couple of years ago. It is not static. We continue to make improvements to it. And this fall, it kind of became an awareness to us that accessibility for the website needed to be addressed. I've been working with Abby on it. By accessibility, I mean, for example, so we're vision impaired. They need to be able to hover over images or hyperlinks and actually hear spoken words that say what describes the images or the hyperlinks or whatever it may be. So we were definitely not compliant in terms of that. So we have been working with our web developer to essentially provide what they call alt text, so that when we do hover over images and things to that effect, that the accessibility is to a standard that needs to happen. So that's an active, ongoing project. We've already made some changes to the website, but we continue to kind of work on that. Just wanted to make sure that we knew that was happening.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, next I just want to say a few words about our building project process. And March is going to be a big month for us here in terms of some of the items on our community engagement plan around the building project. So I put up on the screen here some building project community events that we have coming up. I want to highlight a couple of things. So on Saturday, March 3rd and Sunday, March 4th, we are offering building tours to the public of 3 of our elementary schools, Deerfield, Hanlon, and Sheehan. These are the 3 schools that we've been talking about. They're the ones that were built between 1948 and 1953. They're really kind of the focus of our building needs at the moment. So you can see on March 3rd from 10 to 12, and then March 4th from 2 to 4. Those schools are going to be open. And our plan is to do sort of, tours leaving every 20 minutes. And they will be led by 2 people, by someone from the school and then also somebody from the operations department, so that we can speak to both educational and building needs. We are working with the Council on Aging, so we're doing a bit of a bus tour kind of format for some seniors who may be interested in this process as well. And I would invite all members of the public to come on by and take a look if you are available on either one of those days. And then we are going to be making the rounds to a bunch of PTO meetings throughout the month of March. So somebody from central administration, as well as our school committee liaison to each PTO, will be there to do a little bit of speaking about where we are in this process, and also hearing from people about what their questions are, what their concerns are, some ideas that they may have about the process. In addition to that, we have 2 community forums scheduled. So Thursday, March 8th at 9 a.m. in the Sheehan Library, and then also Tuesday, March 20th at 7 p.m. in the Hamlin Gym. And those community forums are open to all residents of Westwood who are interested in learning more about the building project. So I'm hoping that we will have a nice turnout and that we can really have the beginning part of this conversation about what it means. And finally, I just want to mention, so thank you for your remarks about the situation in Florida at the beginning of the meeting. It's been very much on our minds here in the school department. And I'm hoping at this point the parents received the letter that I sent to the community today, and I'm not going to sort of rehash the thinking that I laid out in that letter. I have gotten some responses from parents, some of which are from people who I think would like more information about what some of our protocols are. I've specifically gotten questions about whether or not we have protocols and procedures in place for an active shooter situation, and I do want to assure the public that yes, we do, and that is something that our faculty and staff are trained on and retrained annually. It is part of what we practice. We frankly don't discuss publicly some of the details of those plans because it wouldn't make sense for some of those things to be known to people who might be potential perpetrators. But the plans that we have in place were developed by a task force that we had that worked in collaboration with the Westwood Police Department, with the Massachusetts State Police, and also with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. So we developed all of these procedures in consultation with people who are really experts in this field. And some of the questions that I've gotten, or some of the comments that I've gotten, I think have questioned. For instance, today I talked about how we're locking the doors in high school. And, people I think understandably have asked some questions about, do you really think that locking the door is what's going to help, And, I just say, I don't know, right? But it doesn't hurt to lock the door, and so we're going to do that. And I really think that what people are asking is if there's any way that I could promise and guarantee that nothing bad will happen. And believe me, with all my heart, I wish I could. I don't think that is the reality of where we are right now.
Do we have a Westwood police officer liaison at the high school?
We have a school resource officer who is a full-time police officer with the Westwood Police Department who is assigned to the schools. So he isn't necessarily at the high school all the time.
But he's in and about our schools?
Of course, yes.
So he at least is armed. It could be somebody, if a terrible thing happens, somebody is there who can actually shoot back.
He spends his days in our schools. So, we have 7 schools, so he's around the district. But yes, he is in a school at all times. So, prior to the events of this week in December, we had already talked at school committee about the fact that we thought it might be time to once again gather a committee, work with those consultants around safety and security, and re-examine our protocols. That was already on the docket. And so we're proceeding with that, and I will continue to communicate with families and keep you apprised of how that proceeds.
Questions?
No. Can we go back to this?
Sure.
So, community forums in particular, what's the format of those? Is it listening? Is it presentation?
I think a combination of both.
Okay.
So and I'm still sort of sorting this out in my mind, but my intention would be to do some kind of brief presentation at the beginning, because I just want to make sure we kind of all have a common starting point for whatever conversation emerges. But yes, then we'd like to hear from people about what's on their mind around this.
So this is a big listening phase, so how are we going to ensure that we are gathering? Are we recording these sessions? Are we?
Yeah, I mean, I would ideally like to work with the Westwood Media Center to see if we can actually have the forums recorded and posted. I should mention that we have already reached out to the Westwood Media Center, and they will be recording one of the building tours, and we'll be posting that. If you haven't checked it out yet, we have a specially designated webpage for everything about the building project. And so all of our communications and whatnot, and the video will also be posted.
And then it goes without saying, keep on tweeting to March tweet or any of these dates. How do you do that for the paper and stuff?
We will do that. So we did a press release just Wednesday about the building tours. Hopefully that word is getting out there. We're also using our own listservs and all that. And our plan, we have a timeline kind of outlined in about every 6 weeks. We have a plan for a community-wide communication about where we are with the process. Great. Okay, great. Discussion items?
Discussion items. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start with the recommendation to create buffer zone at University Station.
So, in my packet to you last week, I sent you a memo with this recommendation that I have. And my recommendation is to create what's called a buffer zone in terms of our school districting lines at University Station. And so I just want to talk through my thinking on that and get the committee's input. So I thought I might start by giving you some information and some data about our student enrollment as it relates to University Station. So as you know, we've been talking about the fact that our elementary population overall is declining, that over the last 10 years it's declined 15%, but that the enrollment at different elementary schools is shifting differently in different places, so it's not proportional. And while the enrollment overall is declining, it's not declining at Downey. So next year we're projected to increase by 20 students at Downey. And I need to be clear that that increase is, so we're not increasing by 20 students at Downey next year because 20 students are coming from University Station. So I want to be clear about that. That just happens to be what the incoming kindergarten number is in the Downey district. And undoubtedly there will be a couple of kids in that incoming class of 54 who live at University Station. So I want to show you what the current distribution is, and so these are sort of the latest and greatest numbers. And what you can see here is that we currently in the district have 39 students who reside at University Station, and they're split between the elementary and secondary in a more or less even fashion. So about half pre-K to 5 and about half 6 to 12. We have one student at the preschool. Because University Station is currently districted in the Downey district, 20 of our elementary students are there. We have a couple of elementary students who are at other elementary schools that come for different reasons. For instance, if somebody already lived in Westwood and then moved to University Station, we might allow them to stay in the school that they were already enrolled in. 10 students at the middle school and then 6 at the high school. And just to show you...
Do you happen to remember, what was predicted when this was implemented
Yep. So
much higher, right?
Much higher. So the projection that we were given, the outside limit, was 63. That the impact might be up to an additional 63 students in the district living at University Station. So, and that number came, so when these projects happen, the developer does a study where they are projecting possible impact. And then you might recall that the school committee in 2013 contracted an independent peer review of the developer's report. And so that number came from our own review.
Is that full build out now?
This is at, it's full build out, and I believe it's at 94% occupancy.
But there's no more housing units going in there.
No, there are. There is. So this is...
when they're built, how much of this is for the total versus...
Yeah,
how many new units are
so this
expected?
is phase 1, and phase 1 is 94% occupied. And so we're about to begin phase 2 of the project. And phase 2 is a little different. So these are apartments, 350 apartments. And phase 2 is for condos.
How many bedrooms? How many bedrooms in the condo?
Yeah, so it's a combination of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom condos, not an even split. It's like a 60-40 split, I think, of 2 bedroom and 1 bedroom.
Is there an estimate of that yet?
And there is an estimate of that. So again, there was the developer's projection, and then the planning board had a peer review fiscal consultant take a look at that as well. They spoke to us as part of that process. And that review says that we could see up to another 12
So the prediction for 63 was specifically to phase one. Phase one's almost all built out.
No, I believe that the prediction of 63 was for the whole thing. And so, the
The whole
30,
thing of rentals, not, at that time, we weren't talking about condos.
yeah, you're right, it was rentals, it was rentals.
Is there a phase 3 also?
No, phase 2, this is
That's
it.
it.
That's it, yeah, that's it.
So the peer review, we've got 2 reviews
Yeah.
of the numbers, all right, and you're talking about 12 additional possibly, maximum 12, right?
Possibly, and the peer review, they noted in their report that they were being considerably more conservative than the developers.
Do we get any mitigation money? Is it the same company that's doing the residential?
I think it is the same company, and so but you know what, I will have to look into
I
that.
didn't think it was.
But wasn't the mitigation mitigation money triggered only if we went above the predicted numbers?
No.
But that was, yeah, no, we got money.
We have
We
money.
already
But
got
if we went
money.
above the 63, there was more mitigation money. Wasn't
No,
there?
no, we got a pot of money that we're holding aside in case the number goes up. But my question is, now they're condos and not rentals, right? So
So you
should
wonder
we
if
go
the
back
predictions-
and
Should we
talk
go
to
back?
them? Yeah, talk to them about.
I am happy to explore that. Okay. Yes, so, but in answer to your question, so the estimate was up to 63, and we're well below that at this point. And then we're about to begin this phase, and we're looking at that, and that could be up to another 12 students. Okay. So I just want to show you how these students are distributed by grade, for what it's worth.
That's
Sorry.
current this year, not next year.
This is current. This is as of February 1st. These are real numbers. So you can see that the spread has actually been sort of even, about 4 students per grade level in the elementary typically. That's where we are. So, as I said, undoubtedly, there has been some impact to Downey's population by having students from University Station. But certainly that number, is well within what we had predicted, and the enrollment at Downey overall has been higher in the past. So, right, we've had more students at Downey in previous years than we do now. However, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot in the budget process is that, due to lots of things, the configuration of our schools, the current size of our population, just, probably variations in the housing market about where school-age children are moving in. What we're noticing, of course, is that we have a disparity in our class sizes from school to school. And so I put up here, by way of comparison, Downey versus Deerfield. And so these are current class sizes as of February 1st, right? And the variance column, to be clear, I'm showing sort of above or below the guideline. So it's either the number above the outside of the guideline or the number below the bottom, right? The floor or the ceiling of the guideline. And what you can see here is that there's a difference. There's quite a difference between the class sizes overall between Downey and Deerfield at the moment. And we frankly have been rather concerned about the size of the population at Deerfield. Deerfield next year is projected to have 171 kids, which is a very small school. By next year at Deerfield, we will have a singleton kindergarten of 19 and a singleton grade 1 of 19. So it's small. So basically what I'm proposing is that we create a buffer zone at University Station, that we designate it as a buffer zone. And what that would mean is that as new students enroll who live at University Station, it would be with the understanding that they could be assigned to either Downey or Deerfield. And we would have the flexibility to get out our class size chart and to look at the age of the students in a particular family and determine where we think we have the most capacity at the moment to take them. We would absolutely assure that students who are currently enrolled at the Downey don't move, right? I'm not suggesting that we move anybody out of Downey, and we would commit to keeping families together, right? So if a sibling started at Downey, then their brothers and sisters would go to Downey as well. But I just think it would give us some flexibility as we try to, mitigate some of these things and to try to even out the class sizes. So, you know, Heath and I have been talking about this, you know, how would this be possible to do this? Downey and Deerfield are on different schedules. And so there are some transportation implications. Right now we have one bus that goes from University Station to Downey. And what we would need to do is, we probably just would add a van. So if we had students who are going to Deerfield, we would transport them that way. The cost of that would be about $18,000. If we needed to add a second van, if for some reason the numbers grew, we would do that. And we frankly don't think that we will end up with more than 2 vans worth of kids. That would be about 16
through
kids.
Connolly, or is this a van that we purchase? Or?
It would, yeah, that's van pool,
okay.
which we already contract with. And
Okay.
so each van holds 8 students. So we could potentially transport up to 16 students to Deerfield next year for a cost of about $36,000 if we needed to. If you're looking beyond that, then it's probably more economical to get another bus,
Right.
which is about $56,000. But it seems highly unlikely, given our enrollment projections, that that would be the case. So, and we've talked about it, and we think that we could do this. We frankly think it probably will be one van. And we think that we can do this within our proposed transportation budget.
Is there any mitigation money from this one? This may be a question for.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. And so I will go back and I will explore that with them. I mean, so we have mitigation money, to your point.
Right.
We have it sitting there.
But this
And
question would-
this would be an example of something that we potentially could use that mitigation money for. To be honest, though, as Heath and I have talked about it, we think that we can afford it within our transportation budget, and the mitigation money we would rather hold on to in the event that we have some bigger, situation, and we can use that money more flexibly to address it.
You need more than 1 or 2 kids, but you need a critical mass. You need 1 kid on the van every day being shuttled back and forth, right? For it's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to, we are, obviously, some of this is just saying, let's create the zone so that we have the flexibility, so that we can assess the situation and figure out what makes the most sense.
There's another development going in over on Canton Street,
Right.
10 houses.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something else that we might have to look at down the road. So, they're in the process of being developed, so it's gonna be a while, but still,
Yep.
that's not.
Yep. So I'm putting this out for your consideration tonight. And
I think it's a good short-term solution before we complete our elementary school project, which alleviates some of these concerns. But
right.
Does anyone have any comments on this? Is this something that?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter. I mean, I think buffers, maybe the first of more buffers to be put in front of, but I'm a big supporter. I think it's the right thing. The only other thing I'd suggest is, depending on what the numbers turn out, you may want to do similar to what we did. I can't remember what was Hammond and different. You may want to see if there's people in preview some of these grades that, depending on what the numbers are, want to volunteer to move from a class, a larger class to small. They may not, but you may want to see if there's volunteers.
Yeah, maybe not. Well, I mean, sure, we have, the school committee has what's called the intra-district policy, and parents can request a change
You
in
can do a little
district.
maybe you should do a little
Advertise it?
outreach.
Okay.
Well, outreach.
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 Yes.
Those are volunteers, so this would be mandatory, and we can enforce it as long as we voted as a policy. So that if someone moves to town and says, wait a minute, I moved to Martha Jones, we're going to Martha Jones district.
It's not.
I know it's
Yeah.
down, but
No,
if they
we-
move to Downey, they could.
Yeah, we determine our
Okay.
district lines, and it does.
We've done that. We did it once before. It wasn't the most popular thing.
No.
We did do it once before, so.
Okay, we'll blame
So
Tony.
does
Blame me.
this-
I'll take the blame on this one.
Do we have to take a vote on this?
Yeah, and so I didn't know if you wanted to take action on it tonight, or if you wanted to
I
think
think we
about
should
it.
take action on it, and I think we should.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? No? All in favor? Okay, great.
Okay, great. All right.
All right, moving on.
Budget.
The budget, how could I not remember? It's right here. Okay, folks, here we are. It's it's that time of year. We've had a lot of discussion on budget, a lot of work involved here. Keith and Emily have made presentations across the town, boards, and so now this is our opportunity, right, to discuss what's in the budget.
I would love to say a few words about it.
Yes.
So, I wrote you a memo last week with some updated thoughts about the budget, so I thought that I should share those, and I sense there are people here who are interested in class sizes and budgets tonight. So here's what I would like to do, if it's okay, before we
That's
discuss.
what yes, I'm
So I have some recommendations to make, and I thought rather than bury the lead, I would just tell you what those recommendations are. And then see if people will indulge me in thinking more broadly about some class size issues for a few minutes.
Sure.
I don't often get a captive audience to talk about these things, so I'm going to take this chance to do it. All right, so first of all, so there really have been two areas that we've been thinking about in terms of class sizes since our last school committee meeting. And the first is next year's grade 1 at Downey and next year's grade 4 at Martha Jones. Okay. So I will kill the suspense here and say that I'm going to recommend tonight adding additional classes in each of those grade levels. But I want to talk about why.
yes.
And I want to take this opportunity to say, I think it's fantastic that people have been engaged in the budget process this year, right? So often, this is exactly the process, right?
Right.
We propose a budget, we get input, we discuss the budget, we vote the budget,
Yes.
right? This is it. And what we have found historically is that sometimes we do that whole process and nobody pays attention. And then in May, we have people coming out and wanting additional sections and talking about class size, and the ship has kind of sailed. So it's fantastic that we have this kind of dialogue now. And I want to talk about my thoughts about class size in general, because I want to encourage people to not then go away tonight and stop paying attention, but to remain part of this ongoing conversation that we need to have about elementary class sizes and the building. So first, Downey. So at last month's school committee meeting, the members of the school committee asked us, we asked if we could take a look at space at Downey, right? So I want to tell you that we did that. Specifically, we were asked to think about the use of the music room, the art room, and also the solarium. So first I want to tell people that the music room next year will already be taken back, will be reclaimed as a regular classroom. Part of our budget proposal is to expand our WABA program, and so we're already going to need a classroom for that. So we had already planned, Mrs. Gallagher had already planned for music to go back to the stage. Where it was
And you want to just explain WABA to me?
Yeah, so WABA is the Westwood Applied Behavioral Analysis Program, and it's a specialized program. It's a district-wide program that's housed at Downey Elementary, and it provides services to students on the autism spectrum. And the program has expanded such that next year we need to break it into lower WABA and upper WABA for pre-K to 2 and then grades 3 and 5, and we can't do that all in one classroom.
And the number of students involved in that program?
What is it?
It'll be like 13 next year, 6 and 7, 7 and 7, depending on the grade code, so it's a big number.
Right. So it's a big number, number one. There are a lot of adults involved with that program, it's sort of a whole team. And there are regulations from DESE about age grade spans that can be in one room at the same time. So we need to do that. So the music room was already, you know, spoken for, so to speak. Mrs. Gallagher and I had a lot of conversations about art on a cart, and I'm going to be honest, it's just subpar. We don't really want to do art on a cart. It changes what you can do in terms of curriculum and program, and it presents tremendous logistical challenges. There's so much stuff involved with art, and it's hard to know where to keep the supplies. You've got to store kids' artwork projects from week to week, and it's just a problem. And also the way that we schedule teacher prep time in Westwood is that they have prep time while their kids are at specials. If the art teacher pushes into the classroom, now the teacher can't set up for science, or whatever it might be, right? So we don't want to do that. And so I had some discussions with Keith, and our proposal is that we build a wall to create a room.
That's a room.
I hear it as I say it out loud, right? So, We're going to build a wall in the solarium and make a classroom out of it, and outfit it with furniture and curriculum materials, and we think for about $35,000 we can do that. I am proposing that we do this within the number that we propose for our capital budget. So I want to be clear that we had a list of projects that we were going to do, and we're going to move this project to the top, and something else is going to come off. So we're going to do it within that number.
Very happy.
All right, so we're reprioritizing that. So, so I want to explain, why we're doing this. As you know, we pay close attention to changes in enrollment, and since the last school committee meeting, we actually had an additional first grader enrollment for next year. So at Downey, that brings our first grades potentially to 24 and 24, which would be 2 over the guideline in both sections. And it's grade 1, right? It's already 3. And so we think that this makes sense. And also, frankly, I've heard from a lot of people at Downey who are concerned about what they see as a disparity between the class sizes at Downey and some other schools in the district. And in fact, when I looked at that, I thought, okay, 24 and 24 really were quite a bit bigger than the next largest first grade anywhere in the district. So those would be 5 more students than the next biggest first grade anywhere. And that sense of disparity felt real to me. And so I think this is what we should do. I want to emphasize, I really do think that creating that additional room out of the solarium for me would be like a precondition to putting this section in. I think that's the right way to go about this. If we're going to do it. So that's what Mrs. Gallagher and I are recommending. There would be the cost coming out of the capital budget, but there would not really be an impact on the operating budget because I would take the 2 literacy paraprofessionals that I previously proposed, not hire those people, and then hire a teacher. The cost differential is not that much. Okay. All right, so that's Downey. And then there's Martha Jones. So right now our enrollment projection for Martha Jones is 25 and 24. That means that one of those sections is actually within the guideline and one is 1 over. I want to be clear that I don't think that because a class is 1 over the guideline, it means that we should add another teacher. I can say historically that has not been the case in this district, and financially it can't be the case that every time something goes 1 over the guideline we add a class, and I need to be really clear about that point. We do consider things other than just the number. We look at the composition of the class. I've had a lot of conversations with Mrs. Tobin about this. And I'm going to tell you really why I'm making this decision. It is clear to me that the number 25 happens to be just an intolerable number for a lot of people right now. And that's interesting to me because we've had lots of classes of 25 in the district. And we have had many, many years, we've had many classes of 24, and people did not consider that to be a large class. It's within our guidelines, right? And so I've thought about that, and I really do think that there is something right now happening in terms of the way our class sizes are breaking, and the fact that we just can't seem to make them even, right? They're skewing all over the place. Where 25 on our class size chart leaps out as being big relative to all of these, frankly, very small elementary classes that we have, right? So that is the reality. And so my recommendation is that for next year, we create another class because we can. How will we pay for that? I will eliminate 2 aide positions at Martha Jones for next year that we had in the original proposed budget. One of them was the aide to mitigate risk at Martha Jones, and the other one was an aide that Mrs. Tobin and I had talked about in the budget process that was just going to give her some flexibility around the building, but I think we are in agreement that eliminating that position and hiring a teacher instead makes sense at this time. So those are my recommendations. What I would like to do, if people can sort of stay with me here for a second, is just talk about some things having to do with class sizes in general and where I think we need to go with this conversation. So, as you know, we spent 4 months this fall reviewing the research around class sizes, revising our class size guideline, multiple months of reviewing it, and we voted it. So this actually is the guideline that we voted is slightly different from this. This was in the report that I showed you in October. So I just want to remind you that, you know, Allison Borchers reviewed all this class size research. She came in, she talked about the conclusions from that. We also took a look at some comp data. So we took a look at the class size guidelines and policies in other neighboring districts. I remember that Mr. Mullen said he wanted to see some super high performing districts, so I chose these, which seemed pretty high performing to me. And, you know, the conclusion that we came to is that our guidelines are very much in line with what is going on in other districts, and actually, frankly, are lower in some places, right? And what we noticed is that very consistently the guidelines in other districts had some language around the fact that it was just a guideline, that it's not like when you hit this number now you do something, or right, and that other things could be considered. So we looked at that. We also looked at some comps about actual class sizes in neighboring districts, right? So I just put grade 3 up here as an example. And what we found was that our actual class sizes were very much in line with other districts, and in fact better than some, right? Remember that we talked about, you see the big green circle for Medfield, right? I mean, what's interesting there is that Medfield just has a different configuration than we do. So they do K2 and then 3-5, and I think, I'm turning to Mrs. Gallagher, she lives in Medfield. Is it 1?
It's actually K1, 2, 3.
K1, 2, 3, 3, 5. Okay, 4, 5, yeah. So, exactly. So they put all the kids in a particular grade in one building, which means that they can create even Steven class sizes, right? They take the number, they divide it by however many classrooms, and everybody's got the same class size. It's just a function of their configuration, right? We've gone in a different direction in Westwood. We have very small neighborhood schools. And so we don't get to do that same kind of math here. So we took a look at this kind of thing. We also looked at our 10-year trend, and what we realized is that our ranges over 10 years have stayed pretty much the same, right? So I've got sort of K1 and then 2-5. But what's interesting is that our average class size has been going down over 10 years, right? How does the range stay the same but the average goes down? Well, it's because we have more classes at the smaller end of the range than we used to 10 years ago. So I thought, oh, it'd be fun to go, you know, this is the chart that we put up all the time, right? Right. The chart, every month, we look at this chart. And I thought, oh, let's look at the chart from some time ago, right? Because I have to say, one of the things that I found challenging in the last month or so is that I find that we're frequently responding to assertions that I know aren't true, right? I know that they're not correct. And I don't think it's because anybody's saying things that they, you know, don't believe. But I thought it would be helpful to look at some reality here. So, you know, one of the things that I've heard quite a bit from parents at Downey is that they feel, I've heard this statement that class sizes at Downey have always been higher than the other schools in the district. And I sat there and thought, I don't think that's true. That's not how I remember it sitting here for a number of years. And so I was trying to go back, take next year's projection and go back 10 years. Is that what that is? Yeah, 2000, yes, that's what it is. So 10 years ago, and here it is.
Really, it's Martha Jones that was the problem.
It was Martha Jones at that time, I suppose, right? Yeah. There you go. Yes, you're a kid.
They suffered.
They suffered, right. So, you know, so that's what it was 10 years ago. And the things that I put in red here, I'm actually highlighting classes that are below our guideline, right? So our guideline starts at 18. And so here are the things that were below, but I wanted to see that they were just below, right? Like 17, and so I didn't do the math here, how many classes that is, but, you know. So then I thought, well, what about, you know, 5 years? If I go 5 years back. Sheehan was taking it on the chin 5 years ago. Right?
25, 23.
And Deerfield, right? 5 years ago, right? So, you know, there it is. I mean, we had a lot of classes with 25, and that was normal, right? And because you saw those class sizes all over the place, we didn't have conversations about how this isn't fair, because it was fair, because everybody in the same situation, right? And so we just didn't hear from people at that number, right? And I've been hearing from a lot of people recently who say historically in this district, 25 has been the number where we've split classes in two, and I don't think it has been, actually. 26 is where we started to really start to feel.
Well,
the
it's hard to
pain.
say, because you probably had space constraints in Shannon.
We probably did.
Because on this one, that
Yep.
besides Shannon, there's nobody.
That's true. That is true.
What you're saying, I mean, for purpose of the building project that we want everyone to support, what you're saying is if you can reduce the number of elementary schools, we don't have this disparity. You can even out the classes, right? That's
Well,
what's causing the problem.
If our goal is to even out the classes, right, then that certainly would be one way to do it. That would be one way to do it. So let me show you the projection for next. And so again, red is things that are under the minimum, right? And you can see we had a couple of things 5 years ago that are similar to situations now. So the kindergarten at Deerfield. This is an example of our problem, right? The incoming K that year was 29. Well, that's a terrible number. That's our official term for it. When we look at the enrollment, we say that's a terrible number. At 29, you can't have one section of 29. But at Deerfield, if you split it in two, it's 14 and 15, and then you're thinking that's really too small. And people find it surprising when I say this, but I've been a teacher myself, and I've confirmed this with teachers. There is such a thing as a class size that is too small. And I would say 14 is getting too small. The dynamics get weird. You get kids who are together all year, and it starts to feel like a little family, like squabble, and you can't make any new groups. So there is a point at which we don't want it to be that small, right? Singletons that spend 6 years together, I mean, by the time they get to 5th grade, they're done, right? Ready for this.
We have that at the Hamlin.
We have that in the Hamlin now, right? 26 in grade 5. So there's that. So then that brings me to the enrollment projection for next year. Okay, and so I've taken the liberty of going ahead and putting in my recommendations on the chart. I italicized them in case it gets voted down. And what you can see here is that we have, I think, 30-some classes next year that are actually under our class size guideline, and some of them by quite a bit, right? We've got a lot of 14s and 15s here. And at some level, I mean, I would love it if every class were 19, right? I mean, I think that would be great. But what I really need to just say out loud is that a chart like this, where we have these guidelines and we can't hit the guideline, right? It becomes problematic. So we have this range, and it's a math problem. We literally cannot hit the target right now. And that has to do with the size of our schools and the way that we're configured. And so the thing for me is that, I have a responsibility to think about the short-term needs, but also the long-term needs of the district. And in the long term, this is not financially viable. If it were, all of our surrounding communities would be doing this too, right? And when we put this chart up, the charts that we don't have up are for the middle school and high school. We're a pre-K to 12 district. 20% of our classes at the high school right now have more than 25 students in them. The truth is, if we were adding more teachers, we should add them there. We're not doing that.
We are doing that.
We're adding 2, yes. I meant if I had more teachers to add today, right? If I were going to make the budget number bigger, I would be looking at the high school right now. So, this is the situation that we're in. And, it has developed over time for lots of reasons. And so my plea today is that we all keep our eyes on the prize of the big picture here, and this is what I mean, that I really need people to stay engaged in this larger conversation, because we need to look at this long-term, systemically, and we can't do that by making little tweaks and decisions along the way. We need to have a conversation as part of the building project about what our long-term plan is. And so, I hope that people will come to town meeting to vote the budget this year and keep coming, because there are going to be a lot of questions related to this issue. So, step off my soapbox and comments, folks.
Thank you, Emily, for all the work you did and responding to the observations and concerns we've expressed. To do an excellent analysis and recommendation.
I think it does make sense, but I think you're right, warn people to show up to town meeting to vote for budget, because there may be people who say, wait, well, these classes are way too small, we're not running a private school system, and so they might resist the budget, so you do need people to show up at town meeting to support it.
I'm glad you said that. I think that's a real danger, right? I mean, when we start talking about the school building project, we have to engage all residents in the community, and there are going to be people whose kids went through the Westwood Public Schools, and their class sizes were 25. They're going to want them to.
I also think you should use it going forward as a reason to explain why we need a better configuration of the elementary school. Not just building wise, but it helps with the class size.
Another thing that's worth pointing out to the town meeting is that we're going to be asking the town for a commitment to do an exploratory study. We have to do that to get state money.
Yeah,
The town meeting has to approve that. If the town meeting does not approve that, is it a minute? How much is it?
It's going to be 1.7, up to, is the way it's raised, to borrow up to 1.75 million.
So if the town meeting does not pass that, we're not eligible to get any state money, which means any proposed, the 3 schools we're talking about are like 80 years old, with all kinds of obstacles and not meeting code, and it's a real, so it's going to be, a lot of energy is going to be needed to, if you've never been to the town meeting, you got to get there with your friends, because there's a lot of people that don't want to do this. That, they're looking at, why aren't they getting more, cut their taxes because of the Westwood station? But that's a second crucial issue for the town meeting, it's related to education.
So, now it's time for budgets.
Okay. Sure.
I don't
Okay.
have any other questions.
So, if no one from the committee has any further questions, this is the point where, thank you, by the way, for the presentation, where this is the budget discussion. So I'm going to open up the floor, and I would ask you, if you want to participate, to please provide your name and street, and then please, because we have, we go to executive session a bit, to just try to limit your comments, if you can, to a couple of minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Should I stand or do I have to? Okay. Suda Sarma, 9 Phillips Brooks Road. I have kids at Downey and Thurston. And want to thank Emily Parks and Giuseppe for coming to our PTO meeting the other day to talk about this. I will just say I went through this with my now 6th grader who is in the bubble, as it says in the budget, the bubble. So, and trying to get to the class sizes that are appropriate. I will say she's not a statistic. We felt it when they split to 3, so much better. I completely feel that K through 2 is the foundation for learning. So class sizes in the high school, completely different. We need to focus on this as a community and say, put a marker down and say, this is the stance we take. On a second note, here's my question. So with the developments happening all across town, primarily in Islington, so affecting Downey, and at University Station and the Phase 2, and trying to smooth out sort of the class size issues and the impact to Downey. I wonder how much discussion happens, school committee and planning board, and how much authority and stature the school committee says, go, no go on this. Because unless we have a certain percentage of the cash flow coming in, instead of, the superintendent having to go beg for this budget or something, I don't see how the development should go forward. So, especially when, as stated in the last meeting, small shifts in classes have big impacts. They do. So we've seen it at Downey. We also, here's the second question, we house some specialty programs, some special ed programs. It's fantastic I think the cost model is that you have all the specialists in one area, so that's cost effective. My question for the school committee is, has that been reviewed to say, because in Downey we don't have the capacity, we don't have any more classrooms, and we're talking about building a wall, has there been a discussion to review where that program should be every so often? And is it still a cost-effective model to have everyone housed in one place?
Okay, so Emily, maybe you can start with the last question.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's take that.
So, yes, so you're correct. We have specialized programs in the district, and it is a very cost-effective model. Just for people who may not be familiar, we have worked very hard over the last decade or so to build our capacity to serve all of our students well within the district. And it happens that that's very much in keeping with our values as a community, that we believe that it is important to keep kids in their home community rather than sending them what we call out of district. So that's important to us educationally. And it also happens that it typically is by far the more cost-effective model. So when we send a kid out of district, the tuitions can range anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 for one kid for 1 year. And so it's definitely cost-effective. What would not be cost-effective is if we try to have these very specialized programs for relatively low numbers of kids replicated in every school, right? That would not be cost-effective at all. Or frankly, educationally viable, right? You do need to have a cohort of students in order to have a program. And so we have specialized programs for our elementary students in different schools. So Downey has some programs, STAR, WABA. There's the Focus program at Deerfield. We have another district-wide program that's housed at Sheehan, right? So we don't at Martha Jones have any programs right now. So we have different programs serving different populations of kids in different places. So, you know, I will say that the programs at Downey have expanded over time, right? And that's partly because we just had more kids who were in need of a particular kind of program, and that's not unique to Westwood. Those are some trends that are happening nationwide. And we do often have conversations about whether or not we should be moving those programs. We've been having those conversations this year with Mrs. Hanscom and Mrs. Gallagher and I. And, you know, there are a lot of reasons that we would keep a program or move it. And one of the things I just want to emphasize is that to make the decision to move one of those specialized programs at any given moment, there are kids who are enrolled in those programs, and it would mean that they would have to change schools. And some of those students have already changed schools to go to those specialized programs. And so we're just mindful of that, and we want to think very carefully about whether or not it's the right decision. And Mrs. Gallagher made some very nice comments at the Downey PTO a couple of days ago, and I will not be able to do them justice, but I would paraphrase them. You know, she really talked about the strength of the Downey community and what an inclusive culture it has, and how, you know, she feels strongly that all students benefit from having those programs in the school for some big philosophical reasons, but also for some concrete reasons, that those programs bring with them some incredibly skilled people who serve as resources for all of the general ed teachers in the building as well.
If I could just reply to that, just a request.
Well, I'm gonna have you hold on because I know there are other people in here, but I just want to make a quick point about your question with regard to projects on building projects in the Islington area, and then the impact on the Downey.
Well, it's not Downey, but it is Hanlon. It
Right.
affects the town.
Okay. So it does affect the town.
Yeah, I'm still considering.
And with regard to these kinds of projects, and the beyond this meeting, we all also are connected to the other boards in town. We all have responsibilities beyond this monthly meeting for school committee. With the we have a liaison to the FinCom, selectmen, and so forth. So to assure you, we do not operate as a school committee in a bubble. We do work with the other boards, and we are mindful and constantly, believe me, constantly looking to ensure that we're on top of what we think, how projects may affect our town and our school district. So the short answer is yes, we do communicate, and yes, we are. We make sure that we're aware. Okay. All right. Do we have another? Yes.
Cashman, 144 Briar Lane, and I'm speaking on behalf of Martha Jones. We just want to thank you for all the time and effort that has gone into thinking about our decision. We know that you've been bombarded with emails from us, and we know that you've spent so much time and energy looking at it, and it's wonderful to know as a community that you do listen and think about it, and a lot of thought went into that. You go to the schools, really look closely at our situation. Thank you so much for your time and looking into that for us. We'd be remiss if we didn't say that our teachers this year, despite the large class size and some of the issues they've been facing, have been really putting so much effort into making it the best possible experience for our kids that they can, that they have, and we just want to publicly thank everyone for all their efforts and doing the best we can. So thank you.
Can I just say that Carol and I went over there today with Emily and Abby, and we were just amazed at what was going on. Even though the classes are large, the kids are learning, they're happy, they're engaged. It was really impressive. So.
And they're very forthcoming, very good about what are you doing? Well, they really wanted to tell us, and actually there was a bit of, well, I get to read. No, I want to be the one to read to them. Let me tell them. So we have tremendous kids in this district, and that's because of parents. And we appreciate you advocating for your children. That's what makes the district great, because people here in Westwood care about education. That's what we're on. So thank you for that. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Catherine Barlett, 49 Woodbridge Road. I have children at Martha Jones. I just wanted to go back to that previous slide where you said the 25, 26 students at Sheehan. Yes, that one. I just wanted to make a note because I did have, my niece was in the 5th grade that year, 25 students. It was a really tough year. It was, and kudos to Mrs. Evans, because I know that the kids would go to different classrooms for like English or different topics, math. So although on paper it looks like it's normal and status quo, I know it was really tough for those kids. So thank you for, you know, again, looking at that, but also considering the third teacher. Thank you.
So does anyone have any questions about the budget? Did you have something? Oh, yes, sir.
Sorry.
No.
So my name's Jay Knox.
You're hiding behind the screen.
Yeah. Try to slip in. I also live in Phillipsburg Road. My daughter's in 1st grade at Downey School. My son is in 3rd grade. So the vote you took today, thank you very much for doing it, but it doesn't affect either one of them. So it won't help them in any way. The one thing though that I think you should know about is what's happening at Downey School, especially if the class is large, is you have the special ed, specialized students, but you have adults in the classroom. In some cases, those aides talk to other students, sometimes they ignore the other kids. So, and then you also have a transient group that's increasing every year. So because you have all these rental properties on University Avenue, University Station, we have the issue with kids coming every year, a little bit more every year, a little bit more every year, and they switch out and they change. So in addition to having the larger class sizes, we also have a transient group that makes it a little bit tougher to make friends. And you have a friend, some that person leaves. And with all the specialized programs there, you also have the adult that won't talk to you but sits there next to you all day long. So from my 1st grader's perspective and from my 3rd grader's perspective, it is tougher to have a school that has so many specialized programs be the ones that have the largest classes. So thank you for going in the right direction, I believe. But just be aware that it is tougher to have so many rental properties in the Downey district because it does change the nature of the classroom. One question I have is, when you had projections from your independent group and also from the developers about the total number of students from the University Avenue Station, of the university project, did they say how long it would take for those numbers to be realized? Is it 5 years? Because it takes a while for people to realize what opportunities are there and what housing opportunities are out there, especially in Westwood. Did they say in year 3 you would hit 65, or was it 10?
Year, but it's based on 100% build up, so that's why we're asking if this is 95% build up, and it's, you know, X number of students. That's what we're trying to figure out. It wasn't really a year thing. It was once it's fully built up, how many kids did they put in? Because we were very skeptical at the time that it'd only be 60 kids. We thought, why, if you could get into the Westwood school system, why wouldn't you move over there? And we're going to be flooded with kids.
Well, it might take a few years for the message to get out there.
We didn't want to. So we actually surprised that the numbers are low.
For now, but it just seems to be trending. But I could be wrong. That's what I'm asking. It seems to be trending each year higher and higher as the message gets out, as the opportunity becomes more aware. People become more aware of the opportunity.
I do think part of the issue is that the occupancy has increased over time, right? So we, you know, for we've been getting monthly reports about enrollment, and it also notes like what percentage occupancy. And so the fact that it's like nearly 100%, and that's the issue, that the projections have to do with like full occupancy.
With how long is the occupancy? Is it 5 years? I mean, right now it would only be 3 years max. But is it switching every year or two, or is it transient? Is it planning?
No, the point is that as soon as it hits 100% build out, they expected 63 kids, right? So now we're at 94% and we got only 39. So that's obviously good for us in terms of demographics and numbers, but it's nothing to do with years. Once it hits 100%, it's 100%.
How long people stay there? Who knows? We don't know.
Maybe study
Condos where people buy and have an investment in community investment in Westwood. We have rental property, so it's just a different dynamic.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer Ferraro, but that was 2 phases of University Ave. So phase 1 was the apartments, which are currently in there, and then there's the phase 2. So phase 1 was 36, and phase 2 was the whole build out. So technically we're only at 50% of build out, because they only have, there's only 350 in the one, and they can go up to another 300 in the second.
Didn't you just say that there's 12 more that they're anticipating?
Yeah, I'd be happy, you know what I will do, I will forward to the school committee the peer review fiscal impact report that I just got.
In context when you discuss them out.
Yeah, sure.
You can see what was predicted and what we get.
Yeah, I'll give you the whole report.
Yeah, because I think they could go up to, in that first University Ave agreement was up to 650 units of whatever.
But they have to get approval from the planning board.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
that gets back to, right now we only have 36 in the 350 units, which is what they anticipated would be the max. And now we have to, now we're at, the next phase would be the condos, right?
It was 100 condos.
I'm not sure.
There's 100 condos, yes,
100.
but the 350.
They're not talking about that anymore. They're at 100 condos.
So that they're not, so the max will be
Phase 2 is
450.
Phase 2 is as a whole,
100
they're
condos.
talking about it and it's only 100 condos.
Okay, so we're at 36 right now, right? We're 350. And the
39.
next phase would be 100 condos, you said, and they're looking at 12.
Correct.
So there won't be any more after that?
Won't be another apartment building.
No more condos then either? Okay. All right, that's good.
Other questions about the budget? Anybody have a budget question? Did you read the budget?
I know you don't want me to do this, but I'm a Downey parent, future first grader, and
Who are
we
you?
appreciate, I'm Lisa McGuire, 169
Oh, I just
Spectra, and we appreciate your consideration in the process with the budget and considering next year's first grade. It wasn't a question, I know it wasn't what you were looking for.
That was nice to hear.
Comments or questions? It can be either. We'll take it all. All right? Yes.
I have a question, but not as related to the budget, it's related to safety, do I ask now, my first time.
During public participation
this is-
on other items
Yeah,
in the
this
minutes.
is supposed to be a budget hearing.
Okay, got it.
So this gives you opportunity to question line items, whatever you want to do. No? No further? Nothing further?
Four people had the Lewises. I just want to thank. I just want to thank everyone for their input. I know.
Did you mean Lewis is the bar of my house?
I know all the Lewises. I just want to thank you for your. I know it seems like messy, but I want to thank all of you for your input. I want to thank Carol and Emily and Heath for the leadership. I heard from the municipal side from multiple people this was like the best process in many years. So thank you for all your leadership.
So now we're going into action items.
Yes, so the first action item is approval of the FY19 budget.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the FY19 budget of $44,903,135. Capital budget of $867,000.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. Any further discussion, folks? No. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Excellent, all in favor.
All right.
A budget. Excellent, good job. Okay, next action item is approval of the minutes from January 11th. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to
Wow, that was harder than the budget. Second? Any discussion on the minutes? No? Okay.
Oh, sorry, I have one correction.
Oh,
I
I'm
just,
sorry, I was looking the wrong direction.
under acceptance of donation from Meditech, Ms. Jowdy wanted to thank, it's Howard Messing. We have his name incorrectly noted there, so.
Okay, so we'll change that with that amendment.
Could you repeat the number you voted?
Repeat it?
Yeah.
I was supposed to say something about that and I neglected to, so.
Yeah, it's not the same one you proposed?
Correct, it's not. So let me tell you why.
Well,
Good job, Mark. She's doing your job as the
It's my job.
FinCom Education Subcommittee Chair. The number, there's about $214,000 that we've been taking as an offset.
Oh.
Because the town had been paying for the bus from University Station and whatnot. And basically they asked us if we could move it into our operating budget rather than taking it as the offset. So the amount of money has not changed, but the number that we needed to vote.
But it's, yeah, so it's
Does that
four.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you repeat the number then?
Yes.
44,903,135.
Thank you. And it was the same, the capital budget was the 867?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
We got a motion on this one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
what?
We have a motion on the floor on the minutes.
Yes, we do.
I thought we already, all right. So I
I second it.
Yes. Yes, now all in favor of the minutes.
There we go.
There we go, good, we've got our minutes, right, because we had a small amendment to the minutes. All right, and now, this is an opportunity again, if anyone has any further public participation.
I've got one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to be a member of the public soon, because I want to tell you I am stepping down. To not pull papers, I just want to tell you, thank you guys for everything. It's been a great experience. I think tonight is a good example of why it's worthwhile. People want to volunteer their time. But I think, I've had enough.
How many years ago?
Well, when I started, my kids were about to enter Martha Jones. And now my youngest kid's a junior at BC. So it's 21 years. It's enough meetings. It's been, for the most part, a lot of fun. It's a great way to, give back to the town. I think the committee and the administration does a great job. I think we're in good hands, especially now that Emily wants to build a wall. So, I've really enjoyed it and be happy to help in the future, but just wanted to tell you, that's it.
Well, we will miss you.
I'll be
You
on
have
that
done.
side soon.
You want to go sit there now?
You guys.
You have been an incredible public servant to this town, and the amount of time, if we could count up the hours, I don't think we can, but the amount of time, but also the input that you give to us and have given to us over the years. It's we can always count on Brian Kelly to bring us to reality,
and
right?
to cut through
the stuff and really get to the point. And we will miss that.
And I think we have to give Brian a lot of credit for getting this high school built.
Absolutely, yes.
Relevant as we go forward for all of you, right? So one of the reasons the high school got approved is because we linked it with the Martha Jones project. And as a result, all the elementary school parents who supported the Martha Jones renovation came out in support of the high school too. So it's all about, getting the school supporters out to vote when you do go and push something, whether it's an override, which we haven't had for a decade, but these building projects is the next big thing for the elementary school kids. So that's what you got to do, get them out to vote.
We do that by explaining what we need and why we need it. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Anybody want to follow that? Barb?
Well, I just want to thank Brian because you have Brian to thank for a lot of the math programs and having the math aides and all the math support, because he had a bone in that, and it was John Gottschalk was spelling and Brian was math and middle school math.
Nice way to say I used to complain a lot.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to say that.
Don't forget health.
No, we avoided that, but he really was so focused on math and really kept everybody, how are we doing in math, and especially in the middle school. So Brian, there's room on FinCom. You can come up here.
Tell my wife for that.
Thank you, Barb. Any other public participation? Yes.
Hi, I'm Amy Cleamont. I live at 52 Woodridge Road. I have one at Martha Jones and two more going to Martha Jones. I know you touched on the safety and what's going on in the news. And I talked to Donna. She was nice enough to email me today about each school has their plans for an emergency lockdown that's not public, which I respect. Do you guys have anything in place for that outdoor spaces, especially as it relates to the elementary schools? I'm just thinking of Martha Jones, and there's that path in the woods, and I don't know what can be done, but today when I was thinking about it, that came to mind. Not so much in the building, but outside, like that's a prime target for all those kids.
Right. So, I mean, I can tell you that our emergency protocol, or an active shooter situation, does include things having to do with the outside. Frankly, mainly focused around what if the class were outside at the time, right? So we have those protocols in place. In terms of like, are we thinking about that path?
I'm saying like recess, really.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
like, yeah.
so yes, we do.
I was just thinking about, and I know like in Hamlin and at Sheehan, there's just a lot of open space. I'm not saying like build an electric fence. I'm just saying like a plan in place, right? Like that, the path just comes to mind, that's open, but there's just a lot of open places at these elementary schools. So just more of planning for that, not just if the shooter comes into the classroom.
That was all, I can just say that I was on the committee with the committee task force, and we were talking at length about that. Particularly, we were thinking at the Hamlin School with the road there. So all of that is included in the plan, and we continue to evaluate. Other public participation at this point? Okay, seeing no further public participation, we're going to move on to new business. You could have put yours in new business.
I'm out of business.
Does anyone have anything they want to bring back from their liaison responsibilities? Anything that sticks out? No? Okay. And then I think then at this point, we have executive session to go to, so we are going, I need a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Yeah. Sorry, Emily, we did have a trip, an overnight trip that I had let you know about. I just don't know if the.
So I actually need an executive decision. I don't think it is something the school committee needs to vote on because it's kids. So good news, we have several high school students who have made it to the state championship in skiing. And because it's being held in the western part of the state, they are going to stay overnight the night before the event. But all of them are being driven by their own parents, and they're staying in a hotel with their parents. So I figured we were. Yeah.
That's what I suspected. I just wanted to make sure.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session. In favor? Out we go. Thank you all. Thank you.